Hello everyone, my name is Mike and the fuck? Try that again. Hello everyone, my name is Mike and this the fuck? Hello everyone, my name is Mike and this is the Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I'm going to do something sort of like a recommendation video, a spotlight video. I'm going to talk about 6 surprising Shudder exclusives that all of you should check out if you have Shudder. And if you don't have Shudder, maybe you should get it for a month, pay the $5 and watch some of these movies because they really impressed me. Now there are a bunch of Shudder exclusives. Some of them they're producing themselves, others they just own the rights to currently, but there are some really solid films, and it makes sense because they do such a good job curating the horror that they do end up putting on their streaming service, which is a great streaming service, by the way, guys. I don't always have it, but every once in a while, you know, if there are a few movies that I see up there that I don't own, $5 a month, you know, it's really not bad. So I'll get it for a month and then cancel it next couple months. You know, I'll watch my own stuff and then get it again. So that's sort of my relationship with Shudder, but I really love the work they do and the films that they get on their streaming service. So without further ado, let's talk about some Shudder exclusives. The first one I want to talk about is Bliss. Bliss is a Joe Begos film. Bliss is about a young girl named Desi Donahue, a young artist, love that name by the way, who was a struggling painter, and so that automatically I connect with, you know, just a struggling artist. And she's a millennial, she's in my age range, she's super laid back. I really dug her character and connected with her character. And it follows her, she has some sort of a creative block, and she looks for inspiration in a nightclub, and she parties up with some enigmatic figures, and she takes some drugs. And ever since that night, things start to get weird. That's all I really want to say. I'll say that the film has heavy Lost Boys vibes and vamp, and just an 80s aesthetic. It even reminds me of Abel Ferrara's work from the 80s and 90s. I just thought it was incredible, but it really rests with Dora Madison's performance of Desi Donahue, the character. It is just incredible. She's so natural, so organic, and I just fell in love with her performance. It makes her delve into madness that much more effective because you feel like she's a friend that you just can't quite reach, you know? It's gut-wrenching, you know? As the story goes on, you're just like, no! You love this character so much that you hate to see what's happening to her happen. And that is sort of my review of Bliss, but if you love 80s homages, if you love some of the films I just talked about, Lost Boys, Vamp, I think you're going to love Bliss. It also reminds me of Devil's Candy, which I haven't seen all of, but Bliss does Devil's Candy better. I never finished Devil's Candy. I thought it was good, but I fell asleep or something like that. But it definitely has similar vibes. I think Bliss does it better, and it all rests on the main character. I love Bliss, so check it out. Next one up is Haunt. Now, this film did make the rounds last year. A bunch of people were talking about it in the community. I watched it a couple months ago. A lot of these films, pretty much all of them I've watched in the last couple of weeks, but Haunt was one that I watched a couple months ago. Haunt blew me away. It is a simple but effective movie. What really carries the movie is how professionally done it is. The production values, every technical aspect is just perfect. Like the lighting, the camera, the acting is solid. Everything is solid. I'm not going to say perfect. I'll say solid. It's also the best of its kind that I've seen in terms of a narrative haunted house film, you know, where a group of people kind of are looking for a haunted house attraction, get in over their heads. This is the best version of that I've seen. I like it even more than Houses October Built, and I love Houses that October Built, but this one just gets it a little bit better. It definitely is 80s in its aesthetic and its vibe and its score and lighting and just feel, which is always a good thing. We're in the time of homages. This film doesn't reinvent the wheel. It gives the audience what we want. It follows a group of people who go into a haunted attraction that is super sketchy, of course, and they get trapped inside. And it messes with your mind. You know, are the perpetrators, are they perpetrators or are they just employees? Are they messing with these kids or is there more sinister motive at hand? Antagonists or employees, whichever it ends up being, have a really great backstory, which adds to the lore. It actually reminds me of a movie called Neon Maniacs in a lot of way, the way that these characters' backstories are handled. We actually start to empathize or sympathize with the antagonists in this movie, which is a really interesting twist that I didn't expect from a movie like this. The characters are pretty two-dimensional, but our lead girl is excellent. She is the final girl, I guess you could say, but her evolution from scared young girl to extreme badass is believable and organic and really, really works. I actually think it works better than Ready or Not from last year. I love Ready or Not. I think it's a better film overall, but I think Haunt gets the arc better, the evolution from a timid, scared girl to a badass. I think it accentuates that and illustrates that, I should say, a little bit better. Really tight screenplay, legit tension, just solid all around, so check out Haunt. Next up is Dead Shack. This is a Canadian horror film that's really well written, snappy dialogue, funny dialogue, some really dark humor going on in this movie. Follows a couple kids who find this shack in the middle of the woods, which is housing some really dark, sinister shit. I think actually the family's has a cabin out in the woods or something, and this person essentially wants this family as food for her zombies. So very cool, simple kind of setup, but the film has snappy dialogue and it's really well paced. That is where this film excels. I cared about the characters. Where the film lost me a little bit was its gore. There wasn't as much as the box and everything. I forgot to bring the box out, of course. I hate this artwork, by the way. The cover, it doesn't have the original poster art. Obviously, I'll probably put it up and show you guys anyway. But it made itself out to be this super gory film, and I don't think it was really that gory. Yeah, we get some gore moments, but it wasn't as gory as I thought it should have been for a film of this nature. All in all, I really did have fun with Dead Shack. A great name, a great poster. Not the original poster I'm talking about is great, and I think it's really worth checking out, so check out Dead Shack. It's a little dead place where we can get together. Next up is a really weird film. By far the weirdest film on this list. One of the weirdest films I've seen in a couple years, I'd say. That is Sequence Break. Now, this film wears its influence on its sleeve. It is a Cronenbergian film. It is very heavily influenced by Videodrome. And it's directed by Graham Skipper. Graham Skipper works with Joe Begos quite a bit. Joe Begos did Almost Human, The Mind's Eye, Bliss, and VFW. Bliss I talked about earlier in this video. Skipper got the chance to direct and write his own horror film, and he did so with Sequence Break, which is a Shudder exclusive. So I checked it out once I noticed the name. I was like, Graham Skipper, I know that guy. I've been doing a Joe Begos sort of retrospective thing. Wow, I was blown away by this movie. I love this movie. It's my type of movie. It really is. Is it perfect? In no way, shape, or form. It has its flaws for sure. But where the film excels is its characters. You really care about these characters. It has a very The Fly setup. A somewhat socially awkward young man. He works in an arcade shop, actually. This arcade shop sells old arcade machines, and he repairs them. Obviously, I connected with that right away. I grew up going to the arcades. I grew up gaming. That spoke to me right there. Now, they couldn't use the names of the games, so they actually had their own artwork over some of them, but it was pretty obvious what games they were, which I thought was really cool. But it follows this guy who's fixing these machines. He meets a young girl, and this actor is just fantastic. She is so quirky and cute and lovable and affable. You just care about her. She lights up the screen with her quirkiness. She really does, and I loved her character. And the talkative, sort of overly confident character of this girl, and then the guy who's a little bit socially awkward, not too socially awkward, but he has some difficulty communicating, you could tell. They just work so, it's like a puzzle piece. They work so well together, and I usually don't go on about romances in movies, but this is one I was really, really rooting for. And that is essential to the story, because without that, I don't think this movie would be much. If there wasn't the chemistry that these two characters have, you wouldn't care about what happens to them in the last half of the movie, which is insane. Fucking insane. The third act is just fever dream, acid induced nightmare stuff. It's a crazy third act. It takes a couple turns that I wish it didn't. I wish it just stuck more to the ground, and it introduces a character and some exposition that wasn't needed. But beyond that, the third act gives us all the great, goopy, disgusting special effects. Essentially, this movie is Videodrome with an arcade cabinet. This guy finds this arcade board, installs it, and it throws him into this parallel sort of universe, and in and out of this parallel universe, and he starts becoming obsessed with the game, and the game starts becoming him, and him the game. Very Videodrome. In fact, there's literally a scene of a hand coming through the black arcade screen. So, I mean, that is obviously a tribute to Cronenberg's Videodrome imagery. So, but the imagery is really good in this. Again, the effects are goopy and gross and superfluous, but I'm all for it. Graham Skipper does a really good job with his directorial debut. Actually, it wasn't his directorial debut. He did a film before this, but I haven't seen it. Sequence Break, my type of film, man. Low budget, great characters, great effects, simple, effective story. Check out Sequence Break. Alright, so these last two are amongst my favorite on this little list I'm doing. Bliss and the next two that I'm talking about are my favorites. The next film I want to talk about is Incident in a Ghostland. This is a Pascal Laugier film, a French filmmaker who brought us Martyrs. Martyrs is a film that is very divisive. Some people hate it, some people love it. I don't think there's much middle ground there. Some people get it, some people don't. I'm not saying that I'm superior. I get what other people don't see. The film, for me, affected me deeply. It heavily moved me. I loved what it was trying to say. But then again, a buddy of mine gave it like a 1 star. He hated it. He thought it was awful. He thought it was offensive. He thought it was terrible. So that's the type of film Martyrs is, and that's the type of filmmaker Pascal Laugier is. Now, Incident in a Ghostland, which is not a good title, by the way. I think that's part of the reason this film hasn't gotten talked about. Incident in a Ghostland is Pascal Laugier taming down a little bit and giving us a more commercially viable film, I'll say. And that sounds gross, right? But it's not. I think I like this even better than Martyrs. This film is also really hard to talk about without giving spoilers, so I'm going to do my best. The film is about a young girl who is a writer, an aspiring writer. He's a teenager who loves to write stories. A home invasion-esque scenario happens, by the way, which also happens in Martyrs, which is one of those things Laugier does. He sets up this nice family in Martyrs, and then this madness, violence, mayhem to the likes that just makes you sick. In this film, he does a similar thing. The violence isn't quite there, but the terror is there. And in the first 10 minutes, you really are catapulted into Laugier's mind, which is twisted and demented and fantastic. There's really not much more I could say about it without spoiling it, because this film has a killer 180 twist that happens that is just blindsiding. I mean, it blindsided the hell out of me. I did not see it coming. It threw me for a loop, but it made everything up to that point so much better, and it makes so much more sense. It's just a well-constructed script. The narrative style is inventive and unique. I've not seen anything like it in a while. It's one of my favorite non-linear sort of styles that I've seen, and it is masterful and gut-wrenching. I mean, heart-aching. It is so hard to watch this movie at points because you're like, no, you're rooting so much for these characters, and they keep getting pulled back to this house, and there's hope for escape, and then there's not, and then it's just dismal. I love the ending of this film, by the way. It is somewhat ambiguous, and it's perfect for the type of film that this is. Great performances, really solid performances from our 3 female leads. Overall, the film excels in blurring the lines between reality and imagination, and I think it does that so damn well. I think that's what this film rests on, and I think that's what Laugier wanted to accomplish, and he did so in spades. Incident in a Ghostland is excellent, but be prepared for a gut-wrenching horror film that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat and make you really, really pissed off. And I want to say Laugier handles misogyny and violence against women in his films and really has a lot to say about them. And I think he does it in a really good way. It's brutal. It's effective, but it has to be to get that message across to people. And I think Laugier does it really well. It's evident in Martyrs. It's evident in Incident in a Ghostland. And you guys have to check this film out. It's one of the creepiest, one of the best written, one of the best films that I'm talking about today. Check it out. Last but certainly not least, in fact, possibly most, Daniel Isn't Real. Daniel Isn't Real is directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer. He has another film called Some Kind of Hate that I haven't seen, but I am now definitely interested in this movie. I don't know if he's done anything else, but this movie floored me. Blew me away. It was a blind watch. I knew nothing about it going in except for the pretty cool 70s-ish poster that reminded me of The Sender. I went into this film, didn't read the blurb, knew nothing about it, and I highly suggest doing that with films every once in a while or all the time if you could. Just go into it, see what it does, see how it moves you. Daniel Isn't Real moved me more than I ever could have imagined. It follows a young boy actually, who has a family trauma, and right around the time this trauma occurs, an imaginary friend pops into existence and starts helping him. It helps him at first, but then things get a little sinister, and in the first act, in the first 15 minutes, this imaginary friend tells the boy to do something very, very dangerous to his mother. And so the little boy's naive, and he does so. And then we flash forward about 10, 15 years, maybe, something like that, where this kid is now a young adult. The imaginary friend isn't there anymore. Obviously, the imaginary friend is named Daniel. Then the main character, Luke, who's played by Miles Robbins, needs an imaginary friend again, or does he, since he's struggling, and he pops back into existence, this Daniel. And Daniel is now grown up. He's about the same age as Luke. He's slick, he's suave, he's cool as shit. And he's actually played by Patrick Schwarzenegger. That's right, Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. And he does an excellent job, which gives me hopes for his career. I thought he was great in this role. Nothing like his father would ever do, which is great. It's differentiating him from his father. In fact, I didn't know it was Arnie's son until I looked at the cast. I was like, no shit, it has to be Schwarzenegger. It has to be his son. There aren't many Schwarzeneggers out there. Patrick Schwarzenegger comes in and just does a great job as Daniel, this imaginary friend who starts controlling and manipulating Luke. And he almost acts like a jealous girlfriend at points. He wants all the attention. And so he helps Luke build up this confidence. Luke meets this really cool hip chick. They hit it off, and they're falling in love, and Daniel starts to get jealous. And there are these great, powerful, arresting scenes where only Luke could see Daniel, but Luke is playing it cool, like Daniel's not there, obviously. He's gotten good at doing that, but his significant other is there, and she doesn't see Daniel, and oh man, there are some great tense moments that just made me like, oh shit. You know, this film isn't going to give you the gore and all that kind of thing, but it's going to get inside of your mind. It's going to affect you. The way that Mortimer plays with space and the idea of this character that only Luke could see when other characters can't. And also Daniel is guiding a lot of these scenes, manipulating these scenes to help Luke succeed. And so the director does such a good job with playing with the camera and playing with the imaginary friend. And this film has some twists and turns that'll just knock you off your feet. It is so good, guys. Daniel Isn't Real is one of those films that just gives me so much hope for the future of horror. This is a film that is unique. It's a great idea. It's one of those, why didn't I have that idea? Ideas about an imaginary friend who's a little bit more than he seems. It's excellent, guys. Check out Daniel Isn't Real. It might be my favorite film on this list between Bliss and Incident in a Ghostland. They're all three very different films, but they're all excellent. All 6 of these movies I recommend, so check out some of these Shudder exclusives. I just want to thank you guys for checking out my 6 surprising Shudder exclusives. that I decided to talk about. 4 of these films I've watched over the last week or so, just kind of digging into Shudder now that I've spent my $5 for the month. And I figured it would be cool to give you guys some recommendations for Shudder, since it is hard to sort of sift through all of their stuff. And they've got a lot of great stuff, but I'm here to sort of curate some of the exclusives that I've seen for you, so check them out. I'd love to know if you've seen any Shudder exclusives. If you have, feel free to leave down in the comments below which ones you've seen, and we could get a little discussion rolling as per usual. That was weird. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, nude to the channel, and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. Bored Cyborg out.